There is a silence at the church in Bochil. There is a silence except for the laments uttered and cried in the Tzotzil dialect by members of the indigenous communities of this town, located in the heart of Chiapas. The Tzotzil and Zoque people, descending from Mayans and Olmecans, are the main ethnic groups living in the state of Chiapas. But they are not the only ones. Other communities with their own native dialects, such as Tzeltal, Chol, or Toholabal, inhabit this state, situated in southern Mexico bordering Guatemala. And these are not the minority. Although 56% of the population officially belongs to these ethnic groups in Chiapas, figures are estimated as high as 75% in some places, such as San Cristobal de las Casas. This sociological fragmentation is visible in the streets of Bochil, where different complexions engraved by the sun, genes or work prevail. But it is also present in the church, where dances and rituals evoke Mother Earth and indigenous songs are predominant. Despite the flow of globalization and modernity, they remain unchanging, rooted in the places where history, culture and tradition have placed them.
There is poverty, there is backwardness. Education needs to be updated. But we also consider this moment as a privileged one. Thanks be to God, people are becoming aware. The indigenous people are becoming more and more aware that they have a place in the world, a place in Mexico, and a place in the church. And we want to respect that place and to contribute, so that the life of indigenous towns can be in unity with the gospel and with human dignity as well.
The reality perceived in Bochil reflects the racial diversity which permeates the whole of Mexico, a country inhabited by 63 different indigenous ethnic groups, mainly from Mayan and Aztec descent. These indigenous communities have a greater demographic weight in states like Chiapas, the Yucatan Peninsula, as well as the states of Oaxaca, Guerrero and Michoacán. This is Tuxtla Gutierrez, the capital of Chiapas. An enormous ceramic mural tells the history of this state in the southeast of Mexico. Nature, history, tradition, faith, ethnicity, and the exploitation suffered by indigenous communities is reflected in this visual summary of the provinces comprising Chiapas, Tuxtla, San Cristobal, and Tapachula. The central column showing the visual history of Chiapas people depicts man's creation by the god of the corn. This fact unites their indigenous historical memory with the nature in which they have lived since their origins.
We refer to the earth as our mother because we live on it, we eat from it, because the native person, the peasant, tills the land, works with the soil, and that is how we interpret it, as a mother. And the whole of nature has a relationship with the divine being that is God. It has helped me to understand the mystery of God through nature.
Nature in Chiapas seems to encourage conditions for a dialogue between man and God. The Grijalba River is one of the symbols in Chiapas. Its importance as the second deepest river of the country is immortalized through its presence in the state emblem and flag. The riverside also boasts the greatest diversity of fauna in the country. The singular union between the Grijalba and the spectacular angles of the Canyon del Sumidero is just one example of nature's generosity to this southeastern corner of Mexico. This gift of water in the Chiapas region provides nearly 20% of the hydrological resources of the country. Nature also associates with history in such places as Tonina, one of the last great archaeological discoveries in Mexico. Tonina, the smoky mirror of the sky, witnessed ceremonies of both man and nature. These traces left through architecture and sculpture by different civilizations in Chiapas evidences the foundations created to encounter God and better the lot of man. Yet in many areas like Chiapas, these foundations at the service of humanity are still not laid, and much of society is not yet favored. The 6 towns in Chiapas, Margarita, Altamirano, Rancho Nuevo, Comitán, Ocosingo, and San Cristobal, are named after the initials of the Zapatista subcomandante Marcos. The San Carlos Hospital is in one of the towns, Altamirano, and it is run by 10 daughters of St. Vincent de Paul and a group of mainly indigenous people dedicated to health care. They see more than 14,000 patients annually, many of which suffer from respiratory or gastrointestinal illness caused by poor sanitary conditions in the rural areas of Chiapas. Almost 4,000 people stay in the San Carlos Hospital, most of them children. Many have had serious diseases since they were born.
Las madres tienen hijos con mucha frecuencia.
Mothers frequently have children within a short time span. Every year or every year and a half, a new baby enters a big family, and the mother does not have enough milk to breastfeed it because she is too weak. The baby is undernourished, and suddenly there comes a new baby. And so the little sisters look after the baby.
Lo pasan a que lo cuide la hermanita. Eso es un desprendimiento muy fuerte para el niño. Y llega el nuevo. ¿Sí? El nuevo pues encuentra una mamá cansada.
This situation becomes a vicious circle because every time a new baby arrives, the mother is more and more tired, with less and less milk. Children become undernourished when they are inside the uterus. They are undernourished when they are born, and they will be undernourished for the rest of their lives.
Y van a seguir siendo personas desnutridas casi toda su vida.
Like in an impressionist painting, healthcare needs is just one brushstroke in the overall canvas comprising the reality of Chiapas. These highlights are set against the darker broad stroke of poverty. An average family has an income of only €150 a month, when without a fixed income, the state contributes €90 a month for each family. Poverty is revealed through the lack of infrastructure, poor educational opportunities, conflicts regarding land ownership among the different indigenous groups, and alcoholism, which consumes families and villages. The resulting images of an exuberant nature, but also of a nature overflowing with human misery.
The isolation suffered by many towns is sometimes really serious. There are not enough schools, and we are talking about secondary schools, not college. Here one of the most serious problems is the marginalization of women. Although women are gaining more and more places in society nowadays, the work done by the church and other groups is great. However, the marginalization of women is widely perceived, more than in other non-indigenous towns. Another serious problem is that mestizos still do not accept the indigenous people. They still look down on them. In Latin America, human promotion is practically in bishops' hands. Some days ago, we met a politician who told us that if the church did not help the government, they would not be able to manage. Bishops, parish priests and nuns know where health problems exist, where education does not exist, where roads are non-existent, or where they need to be repaired. I think we'll be able to face this challenge if we encourage and motivate people to abandon their cultural, academic, or educational lethargy. Many people have still not understood why it is necessary to know how to read and write. They still have not understood why they must be prepared for the present. The Church is responsible for awakening people's minds and hearts to a better future, to a worthy life. I think that evangelization has to bear in mind that there are human and humanitarian consequences that should be clearly exposed to people and clearly reflected upon with the people.
Far from the media furore provoked by revolutionary groups in the recent history of Chiapas, the Catholic Church quietly works to defend the rights, values and customs of the indigenous villagers, caught in a cycle of not only poverty but also persecution, not only in villages but also significantly in urban areas. The indigenous population is especially affected by a challenge that Mexico still suffers: racism. Although a country distinctive through its original inhabitants, Mexican society is clearly defined by shades of class division. Millions of Mexicans descend from Mayan, Aztec, Olmecan or Zapotecan people and are yet still reviled by the mestizo inhabitants, people of mixed European and Amerindian ancestry. Here too, the Church has found ways to encourage the native culture. A new congregation was born in the heart of Chiapas, the Messengers of Guadalupe. With authentically native costumes and lifestyles, their commitment is dedicated to the local culture and to the people around them, and they earn their living working as hard as the people they accompany.
We embroider tablecloths. Some purifiers are embroidered. These are used for Eucharist. We sell religious articles. Rice pudding is sold. Bread is made and sold in different houses. There are many businesses here. There is a lot of competition, and so we go from house to house to sell bread. We must be careful when we do the shopping. We live from hand to mouth. As soon as we have a little money, we buy some food.
The wind is strong in San Mateo del Mar. Every month for 4 days the wind whips this small town inhabited by the Chiapas people. They are known as the people who live in the mud. History seems to identify the Chiapas as originating from Peruvian Inca Indians who migrated to this area. What is certain is that they are one of the purest indigenous communities inhabiting Tehuantepec. Located near the coast, the inhabitants of San Mateo live on an informal economy. They sell fish, fruit and other products from the land, such as the chayote, tuber characteristic of this area. Women are in charge of maintaining the dialect and their traditional costumes. Sister Maria rounds the stands of the small market. She speaks with people and buys something to eat for the day. She shares her life with them. Her serenity among the hustle and bustle becomes the living word of God, and it permeates this community, which lives hand to mouth.
Ah, yes. It is very difficult. Very difficult. However, it is not so difficult when missionaries or the catechists offer their lives to these people. They experience their sincerity. Missionaries or catechists are seen as the testimony of Jesus' love, and they are appreciated. People are loyal, but they want to see sincerity in others. If there is no sincerity, if there is no life coherence, they notice it quickly, and they no longer pay attention.
Tiro Ruiz, the national coordinator of indigenous pastoral and a catechist in Chiapas, offers this sincerity and coherence of life and faith. Ciro has 2 indispensable instruments to carry out his job: the dialect he has spoken all his life and his feet. With dedication overcoming exhaustion, he walks to many of the 55 communities comprising Bochil. He visits children, young adults, married couples and the old. In Tzotzil, the main dialect in Bochil, he preaches catechism in villages of the beaten track, and he visits the many poorer houses scattered in the mountains where he takes time to listen to the daily problems and to understand their needs.
En la pastoral indígena, hablando de los tzotziles,
It is a bit difficult for us to speak to Tzotzil people,
asimilar,
to make them understand
entender,
and analyze the Word of God,
profundizar.
because it is in Spanish. And Spanish is difficult for the people who speak the Tzotzil dialect.
Castellano y uno pues que habla el tzotzil, pues serían las dificultades, cuesta un poquito para entender o para traducir.
I have to translate the Gospel, which is in Spanish, into the Tzotzil dialect. The people simply do not understand if I do not explain it to them in their dialect. They feel better, they listen to me in a better way, and they can understand the Word of God even better when everything is translated into their dialect.
Mejor pues, escuchan mejor la palabra de Dios y entienden mejor.
The work of the Catholic Church with the indigenous population is one of an inculturalization in the communities, a process that begins with the knowledge and promotion of the indigenous dialects. Learning is encouraged by means of seminars given by religious communities and lay groups. The Church is also working to translate the sacred texts and the publication of the well-known children's Bible, supported by charitable institutions such as Aid to the Church in Need.
The Church protects language and culture, and we have this challenge, which is so difficult because many dialects are being annihilated in Mexico nowadays.
Multiculturalism and by extension multilingualism are best expressed in the beautiful city of San Cristobal de las Casas. Urban colonialism mingles a diversity of characteristics, and the population offers the mix of flavors, scents and textures. Tzotzil, Tzeltal, Chol, Tojolabal and Zoque people live here. Everyone has his or her own typical personal and cultural expression. Everyone has his or her own dialect, frequently used in daily communication. The statistics speak for themselves. In the San Cristobal diocese, 3 out of every 4 inhabitants speak one of the indigenous dialects. Juan Diego, a Chichimeca Indian, is one of the most famous people in the history of Mexico. A poor peasant, he experienced the apparition of Our Lady of Guadalupe from the 9th to the 12th of December 1531. Although it has been 5 centuries since that event, Juan Diego's image continues to carry meaning, especially for the indigenous populations. Juan Diego is beloved, respected and worshipped. The popular devotion is witnessed everywhere, whether street or path. Mexican geography is characterized through images of the saint. They may or may not have artistic value, but the indigenous take pride in them. The apparition to Saint Juan Diego today proposed as a model for the lay people and as an instrument for the evangelization of the country caused a revolution at that time regarding the indigenous culture, traditions and lifestyle, as significantly the Virgin spoke to him in a native dialect, Nahuatl.
For them, this means that God has always borne them in mind, that the Virgin Mary loves them. The Virgin Mary did not speak Spanish, she spoke Nahuatl. They consider it absolutely key that the Virgin used one of their dialects. In this way, they understand that they are important to God.
Padre, ya no me da vergüenza hablar mi lengua indígena.
Father, I no longer feel embarrassed to speak my indigenous dialect, because now I know that our Virgin of Guadalupe and Saint Juan Diego spoke an indigenous dialect, as you do. Father, I no longer feel embarrassed to be dressed as an indigenous person, because the Virgin wears indigenous clothes, and the Virgin is like us. And you, Father, are also dressed like us. I no longer feel embarrassed to wear indigenous clothes, the clothes my parents and my grandparents taught me to wear, and so I feel identified with my people.
But the past and the present do not guarantee the future of the 1,000 inhabitants of Chiapas, especially the indigenous. Like ants in the jungle paths of Tonina, they shoulder the burdens of their lives to emigrate to other parts of the country or to the United States. The most traveled route is the one that ends in Mexico City, the capital of the country.
That is happening in my parish, because there is unemployment here. And so, what do indigenous people do? They go to the United States, Cancun or Guadalajara, to look for jobs.
Pues en Estados Unidos o aquí en este caso pues también en Cancún o aquí hay unos que han ido hacia Guadalajara. Yo creo que ahí están la mayor parte de la...
Most country people are in Guadalajara. They also go to other places, and that is a challenge because they don't know other cultures. It is where they find difficulties. Chiapas does not offer opportunities to them to support their families.
Salir adelante en la familia, pues no.
La migración en Chiapas es un fenómeno.
I would say emigration in Chiapas is a new, modern phenomenon, because people should not have a reason to leave Chiapas, as there is so much natural wealth here. However, there is not an equal distribution of riches here.
Ocurre así. Hay emigración hacia los Estados Unidos, hacia otras ciudades de la República.
People emigrate to the United States, to other places of the country, especially to tourist centers. There is also internal migration to big cities such as Tuxtla, Tapachula, and San Cristobal. We have to work hard here. We are a state, which people bypass, a kind of migration pathway. We are bordering Central America, especially Guatemala.
América Central, especialmente Guatemala.
The informal economy supports a large percentage of Mexican families. The indigenous from Chiapas and from other states have always been accustomed to living on informal means, and they fall back on the same kind of activities in the capital to be able to survive. Therefore, the economic difficulties do not abandon them once they get to the dreamed-of capital. Official figures estimate that there are 500,000 fully identified indigenous living in Mexico City. However, more realistic estimates state that about 2 million indigenous live in the social and political center of the country. They not only face difficult economic challenges, they also confront racial discrimination. Many of them, for instance, are unable to get a job because they belong to one of the many indigenous communities in the country. They are rejected because they belong to a different culture, they speak another language, or because they have a darker complexion.
El Juan Diego de hoy que llega, que sufre.
They symbolize the Juan Diego of today, the Juan Diego arriving in a city, suffering, the Juan Diego that continues being discriminated against. That is why it is a shame that here, a country where so many indigenous siblings live, they continue being rejected.
Muchos hermanos indígenas sigan siendo rechazados.
It is necessary to be like Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ preaches the word, but he also worries about the poor, the sick, and about those who are suffering. It is for us to say, if we want to be faithful to Christ's mission, we cannot remain inattentive when we see these people suffering such serious limitations.
Mexico City is one of the largest cities and the most populated capitals in the world. It is a challenge of survival for those among the poor. It is a country of great contrasts, tremendous wealth, and yet deep poverty and marginalization, especially among the indigenous that have migrated from afar in search of a solution to the poverty at home. Many times it is only the church who opens the doors and offers them the comfort of faith. And if we speak about faith in Mexico City, it is to the Guadalupe Basilica that millions seek solace each year. Thousands of Mexicans come on a pilgrimage to the shrine every day. Everyone's prayer is unique, personal, and exclusive. Many still speak Nahuatl, the dialect used by the Indian Juan Diego nearly 5 centuries ago. But the relationship between indigenous culture and Catholic Church has not been established only in areas of faith and culture. This relationship has become more than that. Today the Church is the place where indigenous people are accepted as they are. They share their experiences and gather strength to face the hostile environment that can be Mexico City.
Neither the Church nor governments should be paternalistic. They have to be able to face this historical moment, and we have to respond to their needs in our environment.
It is raining in Mexico. It is raining in the capital of the country, while a small community is attending Mass. The canvas tied with ropes shelters the church situated on the side of an old cinema, the Linda Vista. In 2002, the government gave this building, built during the second half of the 20th century, to the church. The walls, which can hardly stand upright, are not suitable for a parish centre, but the small Nahuatl community is not discouraged, preparing the same celebrations as they have done for centuries. Two women dance while incense from a resin obtained from the ocote tree smoulders in a burner. Accompanied by the smell of ocote, the natives say their prayers to God, sometimes accompanied by dance, but moreover, as in Bochil, expressed with words of the heart, uttered in silence.